True story or fake news? Marijuana should not be prescribed for people with anxiety, depression, and PTSD.
Find out today on Medical History Mysteries.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Medical History Mysteries. I'm Pam Maragliano. With me, as always, my buddy Tom Viola.
Hey,
Tom,
buddy.
what is the scoop? Marijuana should not be prescribed for people with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. I thought this was supposed to mellow people out.
Holy moly, Pam. If we don't get a bunch of comments in this about this video in our comment section, I don't blame people for commenting. It's gonna go both ways. This is one of those things that flies in the face of what people consider to be conventional wisdom, right? You and I both know that if you use cannabis or marijuana, that it should mellow you out and take the edge off and help you relax. And some people use cannabinoids like even CBD to get better sleep, whatever. And I'm all for it, whatever works. Because as a pharmacist, I know we don't always have great drugs to treat certain conditions. And if marijuana is an add-on and can be used to treat conditions, heck, why not? But the Lancet, and I'm going to read from the actual publication, the Lancet Psychiatry published recently research that said no rigorous evidence that cannabis or medical cannabinoids, which is important, effectively treated anxiety, depression, or PTSD. In fact, the sweeping analysis revealed that marijuana products can actually worsen mental health, delay proven medical treatments, and carry significant risks of adverse events. That's right out of the Lancet Psychiatry. This is a torpedo in the side of the boat that says medical marijuana works, and over 40 states have approved some type of medical marijuana program.
What does the science say?
Basically, it's a lack of evidence. Okay, there's no other way to put this. It's just we haven't done enough research to know what we don't know about cannabis. And some of these studies, I mean, the Lancet is highly respected. So, I'm not going to say I know better than they do. But I think what they're calling out here is that there's no evidence to suggest that it works to treat these conditions. But if you're relying on empirical evidence, which we all do in science, you cannot discount the anecdotal evidence. So go online, right, and look at the thousands of testimonials from people who have said, medical cannabis has changed their life, right? That it's helped them treat PTSD, that it helped them treat their depression. My concern is with every bit of evidence that's anecdotal, the problem is people may self-diagnose. And we're not, if you're a layperson, you're not a skilled diagnostician. And so you diagnose yourself with what you think you have, and you're treating a symptom, but you're not treating the underlying condition. And that's what the Lancet, I think, is pointing out, that there maybe by masking the symptom, you're delaying a much more effective treatment that would have been available had you gone to see your medical practitioner, but you didn't because you just thought you could self-medicate with cannabis. So you treat the symptom without treating the underlying condition. The underlying condition worsens, which means you worsens the symptoms, and you treat the symptoms more aggressively, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Now, I can't say for sure that the lack of evidence means it doesn't work. All I can say is there's just a lack of evidence. And just as a side note, what really has caused a lot of confusion now is the law that was. This is proof that the federal government has no sense of humor, because why would you pass a major piece of legislation about cannabis on April 23rd? You missed 420? But anyway, folks, side note. So no one has a sense of humor in the
That went
government.
over
What can
my
I say?
head too.
What can I say? But anyway, the point of all that is, so the Attorney General files the motion, and now, okay, medical cannabis is Schedule 3, not Schedule 1 anymore. Any medication made from a cannabinoid is Schedule 3, right? But they're not legal. They're just Schedule 3. That opens up more money for more research, in my opinion. I think the major benefactor of all research in this country is the United States government. So now with the United States government knowing that technically it's Schedule 3 can fund more research. But that's all going to come, and this episode may be published after the landmark ruling in June that's coming up, June 2026. But that confuses people because even though that change was made, recreational cannabis is still Schedule 1. So I don't know where we're headed with this, but I think that's another reason why there's so much confusion because there's such conflicting information. Nobody even knows if it's illegal, let alone whether or not it could treat a condition or not.
So I think that there's two main messages here. Number one, there are non-dental professionals that listen to medical history mysteries. So like where you come from, we have no idea, but we're super grateful for you. So
Yeah.
again, when it comes to any self-diagnosis or self-treatment of a symptom, it's important to seek medical care and make sure that it's not a symptom of a larger underlying problem. So while, your home remedy or whatever it is that you might take might help that in that moment for that symptom, there could be an underlying problem and it's worth investigating. For us as dental professionals, though, I think having this conversation, again, steering our patients to get the proper medical advice, because again, like you said, it sounds to me the evidence is all over the place, but it's also very individual, especially when it comes to mental health. And I think that something that works for somebody might not work for somebody else. And I know I'm certainly not equipped with the education to guide a patient through that process, but there are people that are and can certainly help get them the treatment and, even more importantly, the monitoring that they need. So I think for us, making that suggestion is important. Now, I want to
Yeah.
hear a little bit more about what's coming in June and where do we find out, besides medical history mysteries, where do we find out what ruling is taking place in June so we can stay on top of this?
Yeah, well, that's why I thought this was important to bring up the Lancet's research because I think that's going to factor heavily into whatever decisions are made about this. And just to back up 1 second, I think the Lancet had a good point here, which is if you're treating the symptom and not treating the underlying condition, you're going to treat the symptoms are going to worsen, which means you're going to treat them more aggressively. And what we've learned over time with cannabis is that the higher the concentration of THC, the more likely it is you would develop the negative effects of anxiety, paranoia, hyperactivity, which are the very things you're trying to treat in the first place. So I can see that point. In June, what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be this ruling as to, and again, this could be published after that, as to whether or not we're going to deschedule cannabis completely or reschedule recreational to Schedule 3, whether it's going to be legal or not legal. So where do you find all this? That's why I say you got to stay frosty, right? So you got to be on the DEA's website. You got to read articles, pop in, even if you just, Google it or get AI to tell you anything's better than nothing. Because the problem there is well, the one thing I've always said about marijuana or cannabis is our patients know more about the drug than we do. And it's tough for them to have faith in us if they know more about a drug than we do. Like, why don't you know that? You're my dental professional, you're my medical professional. Why don't you know that? So it's important to stay frosty and be on top of the information because things change rapidly. Now, with something like cannabis, it's probably going to hit the major news market. So even if you fell asleep one night, the next morning it's going to be there. But some changes are subtle. And this thing published by the Lancet Psychiatry, this is my job. That's what I do. So I knew it was published, but a lot of people didn't even hear about this study. So again, that's why it's important to stay on top of the information.
Most definitely. And we'll certainly stay on top of it for and with you. And we will revisit this at some point in June. So thanks for joining us on Medical History Mysteries. And we will see you all next week.
Thanks, everybody.